It is 7 o'clock, and I would request that the meeting come to order. Welcome, everyone, to our July board meeting, and I would ask Doug Wills, who has volunteered, to begin with the invocation.
Let us pray. Our Father, we thank you for this gathering here this evening. We'd ask that you guide all of us in this meeting to do the right thing and to honor you in our actions. Thank you for this beautiful place. Help us to preserve it. Thank you again for everything you do. Amen.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug. Next is roll call from Greta Pitcher.
Okay, we'll do the roll call now. Harding, Mike.
Mike Harding, Site 393, I've been part since 2006.
Rob.
Rob Klein, Site 880, been a member since 2003.
Carolyn.
Carolyn Nielsen, Site 803. I've been a member since 2010, and I'm on the Building Grounds and Lake Committee, and also on the liaison for the Golf Committee.
I'm a member since 1993, that's 24 years. We're on Site 438. I'm on the Long Range Planning Committee and on the SOAR Committee.
I'm Marty DeVries. I'm at Site 164. I've been in the park since 2002. I'm on the Long Range Planning Committee. I'm your chairman of the board, and I also chair the Policy Committee.
Roger Grinwis.
Roger Grinwis, N22. We've been here, we're in our 26th year. I'm chairman of the Long Range Committee, and also I'm on the SOAR.
Doug.
I'm Doug Wills, D44.
Yeah, they can't.
Been a member of the park since 2002.
Tim Hoffman.
Tim Hoffman, Site K485. This is our fourth summer out here, and I am currently on the Safety and Security Committee and chairman of the Finance Committee.
Dennis King.
I'm Dennis King at Lot 1076 and Phase 3, associate member for 20 years and a regular member since 09. I am chairman of the Safety and Security Committee, and I'm on the Technology Committee.
Thank you, Greta. Next on the agenda is the member input portion. And as you'll see, we're going to introduce a new communication strategy and format tonight. The Board of Directors, as you see before you this evening, we all spent the majority of an afternoon on July 9 in a strategic planning committee. And we have collectively decided to try a new strategy, a new approach of, and a concept of acquiring member feedback. The new approach may be different than what you're accustomed to even this year with the little white slips where you stated your name, your site number, and a request to comment. So we have agreed that the process that I will share in a couple minutes is how this new approach will work, and I'll outline the guidelines. We have a key spot right here in the front. There's a podium with a microphone. We would ask that any member that wants to share feedback, input, has a question, or just a comment, proceed to the podium with the microphone. A member that comes to the podium will state their name and their site number, and they have one person may speak at a time. So we're going to ask the audience to respect the person that has the microphone. That person will have one chance at the microphone this evening, and then we'll pass it and respect the next person who would like to comment at the microphone, the next member. You'll have 2 minutes to provide your feedback or your input. The official timer is to my left. I will gavel the 2 minutes and we'll move on to the next member feedback or question or comment. The big change is that we are going to listen tonight instead of responding. So we don't want anyone approaching the podium expecting that a board member or Jean or Kimberly will be responding to your comments or your feedback. We're simply going to listen. We're going to document some categorical issues. We want to make sure that we all listen and take very copious notes, but we want to hear from the members in this new approach. Once you've finished your 2 minutes at the podium, we would ask that you step aside and let the next member speak. Do I have any comments from any other board members that can help me support this new approach?
I would just like to make a quick comment about this. This isn't an effort to allow for member input prior to different votes that we may be taking. It's to mirror this more like a board meeting that you would have at the Board of Commissioners or at your city council, where you're providing a comment to us, and then we'll take that input in. We're very fortunate that Jean has been giving an avenue on the face-to-faces where it's a more intimate setting that allows for the questions and then allows the board members to be able, and Jean and staff, to be able to answer those questions. So it's more to make this meeting more formalized, like a Board of Commissioners meeting or a city council meeting. So I hope that you understand that, and then at the end of the 2 minutes, if you're going over 2 minutes, it's not to be rude when we cut you off. It's just to have respect for the other members that also want to make comments too. So.
Fine.
Make a motion on this? Make any motions on this?
We can begin the member input if the first person would like to approach the podium with the microphone. Any members?
Well, I would like to thank the board, the administration, for the positive PR that I see on the gates as we coming in. It says, thank you for keeping the park up to the stuff as it is, keeping the sites clean.
Rudy, can you state your name and your site number first, please?
I thought everybody knew who I was. I mean, you know, I've been here, what, 40 some odd years? Rudy Fodak, site N5, okay? Anyway, that's my comment.
Larry Munger, D161. I want to comment on your ballot proposals. I think it's wrong to make the indoor pool contingent upon passing the capital reserve fund. If I want to spend my money, and it is my money you're spending, on the indoor pool, I should be allowed to do that. And I don't care what you do without the capital reserve fund. But I think it's an insult to the people here in the park that we're not allowed to decide how we're going to spend our money. It's our money you're spending, and that's what you should be concerned with. I don't know what else to say to you. It's like you're treating us like kids. You can't have your dessert unless you eat your vegetables, and that's the way this looks like. You can't have the indoor pool unless you give us our capital reserves, and it's just wrong. And you should be thinking about a way to change this.
Andy Cranenborg, I'm at site K328. I had really 4 questions here, and I've written them down so I can read. I'll just read them off here. Many members, based on my feedback from talking to people, voted down last year's capital reserve fund because there's no detailed plans for the $2.75 million pool building, so members don't know what they're getting for their dues. The funds to come up with preliminary building plans is apparently still unbudgeted. However, we demolished the old building, and that was unbudgeted, yet the expenditure occurred anyway. Why can't the board allocate some funds to get preliminary design plans put together, layouts, size, amenities, artist renditions, so members can see the future vision for that building and improve the chances for approval? Secondly, last year at a board meeting, I asked why the financial statements don't report actual capital fund expenses. And I think our CFO, Kim, replied that she was working on it at the time. Current financial statements still do not report capital expenditures. Is that still being worked on? If members actually saw how our capital funds were currently being spent, maybe they would understand better the need for an increase in the capital expense funding. Thirdly, the ballot proposal for capital reserve fund says the amounts not expended for the budget for the projects above shall only be expended for capital projects approved by the board. And I assume that means that future boards can choose to not expend funds designated for the non-essential items and upgrades, and instead they can choose to approve those funds for any project they desire that's not in the current plan. Is that really true? And lastly, I appreciate this new format. Personally, I would like to see it move to the end of the meeting. A lot of times there's discussions that occur during these meetings, and we would like to ask follow-up questions at the end of the meeting. By having us do this at the beginning of the meeting, we're not afforded that opportunity. And then by the next meeting, it's sort of stale and not in our minds. So thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm from Site K452, and I've been here since 2001. And I wanted to follow up on the proposal ballot, that I also don't feel it's right that if we don't approve one proposal, or both proposals, I don't quite understand it, that if we vote for a pool and the members approve it, that we're not going to get a pool unless we also approve the capital funds. And why did they put it on two separate ballots if you have to have both pass in order for it to be built? And that's all I have to say, because I don't know what they're going to talk about this evening. And again, I'd like to say this should be moved to the end or the middle before they make their votes. We should have an opportunity to talk about or make statements what they've discussed prior to their vote, so that they know how we feel about what they're about to vote on. And that's all I have to say.
Hi, I'm Diane Ronda at Site N160, and I guess I also appreciate this format that you started. I'd love also to see it at the end for a follow-up, but I do support everything almost that the board does, and I support your capital fund. I noticed in your capital fund that you are proposing to put a pool in phase 2, which I'm very happy about. But I think we need more pools. Our pools are very crowded, and I would love to see something happening over in phase 2. But I'm a little bit concerned about the size of pool that's going to go over in phase 2. I've asked and been told it'll probably be about the size of the pool in phase 3. So I guess I just want to say, if we can't put a really nice pool in phase 2, then maybe we could just wait and save up some money until we have enough money to put a nice big pool in. Thank you.
Any other members wish to speak? Okay, we'll move on to the agenda. All of the minutes for June 23, 2017 were distributed to board members electronically, as well as reviewed on Monday's planning meeting. And I make a motion to approve the minutes of June 23, 2017. Do I have a second? I second. Greta seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes have been approved. Next, we have the approval of the new park members. Greta Pitcher.
For the time from June 20th to July 17th, we have had 24 sales. 9 of them were resales and 15 were transfers. Phase 1 we had 3, phase 2 we had 2, Phase 3, we had 3. Phase 4, we had 6. Phase 5, we had 8. In Phase 6, we had 2. I need a motion to approve the new members. Okay. All in favor?
We need a second?
Oh, second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Any opposed? The new park members have been approved. The next item is the executive and personnel portion. I would like to welcome everybody for joining us here tonight, a very, very good show of members on a very hot evening. But I would also like to thank all the staff members that are present here tonight that are also members in this park, as well as Jean and Kimberly and our recreation staff, as well as all of the member volunteers that worked on Family Fun Day. We had great weather. It was a great participation amount and good level. A lot of activities for the kids and families. I would just like to thank everybody for participating and all those that volunteered. It was very fun. I'd also like to remind everybody of our annual meeting that's coming up on August 19. It's also Election Day, where you will elect 3 board members. You will also vote on the ballot proposal. We also know that that annual meeting is held at the chapel at 10 o'clock in the morning. So we'd welcome everybody to attend that as well. We will be covering the accomplishments of Sandy Pines Wilderness Trails as well as the Lake Monterey Golf Course at that meeting. So please join us on that Saturday morning at 10 o'clock in the chapel on August 19. At this time, we also, in our bylaws, are required to approve an election commission. The chairperson of the board is required to do that annually by appointing not less than 3, but not more than 5 members to serve on an election commission. And the advice and consent of the board at this time is to approve the 3 people that have submitted their interest in the election commission. Those 3 people are Donna Adams at site N461, Charles Adams at site N461, and Diane Peck at site N104. At this time, I would like to get an approval from the board by a vote by name that we approve this election commission. So Kimberly, will you do a vote for the election commission? I present the motion to approve the election commission.
Yes.
Dennis King.
Yes.
Brad Pine.
Yes.
Greta Pitcher. Yes. Doug Wells.
Yes.
Raj Gritlis.
Yes.
9-0. So.
Yes.
You will. Oh, okay.
I still have to vote.
Marty.
Yes.
Brenda. Yes. 9-0. So.
Thank you. To any of the members in the audience today, if you are interested in volunteering to assist this election commission of 3 people on election day at the polls or at the counting in the library, if you could see Donna Adams. Donna, would you stand for a moment so people know who you are? If you're interested in assisting Donna, you can see her after the meeting. And if you don't find her after the meeting, you can get with Kathy Brott in the administrative office, and she will make sure that your name, phone number, and contact information and your site number are shared with Donna. We also have a requirement to appoint a Rules Committee board liaison to our Rules Advisory Committee. And Mike Harding has agreed to accept that appointment to the Rules Advisory Committee. So thank you, Mike, for doing that. Next is Tim Hoffman, the finance report.
All right. So we had our last finance committee meeting this last week, July 13. And we were able to review all of the check distribution and the profit and loss and balance sheet for through May. And those reports have been submitted to the Board of Directors for review as well. Copies of the financial statements and the check distribution. And, just want to continue to reassure this group that I think the Finance Committee is a very important part of this park. We have currently 8 members from the park who are serving on that committee. They're looking through those check reports. They're asking questions about how we're doing on our profit and our loss. How is income this year versus last year? Asking questions on expenses. Gene and Kimberly are always in there and very ready with information on that. So that's something that the membership should be thankful for. But the Finance Committee would like to recommend now to the board for approval of the April 2017 financial statements. So I will make a motion on that. Dennis
Seconded
is a
by Dennis
second.
King. Is there any discussion about the financial statements before we vote? Go ahead, Kimberly.
Rod Klein. Yes. Carolyn Nielsen. Yes. Greta Fisher. Yes. Doug Wells.
Yes.
Marty DeVries.
Yes.
Raj Grinwis.
Yes.
Mike Harding.
Yes.
Tim Hoffman.
Yes.
Dennis King.
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you. We go on to the rules report. First on that agenda is Doug Wills.
Excuse me. Resolution 072117. It's a resolution to amend the wording of the gazebo rule. It's a one-word change. The old reading of it is the size is limited to 12 by 12 or smaller with no larger than a 6-inch overhang. The change is going to be the size is limited to 12 by 12 or smaller plus no larger than a 6-inch overhang. There had been some fogginess about the word with, so we felt that the word plus means it's a 12 by 12 footprint plus the extra 6 inches around. Because 11 by 11 with an overhang was kind of weird. There was some problems, so that would be the only change. And I'd like to make a motion that the board approve this as read. Is there a second? Okay.
Any discussion about the resolution before we vote? I would like to just thank Doug Wills for positioning this, because I know that it's been a controversial issue and some members interpret with different than others, and we just want to make it as easy for the members as well as for an inspector when he goes to approve a gazebo. So I thank you for all the work that you've done on that. Any other discussion? Go ahead, Kimberly, with the vote.
Marty DeVries.
Yes.
Raj Grinwis.
Yes.
Mike Harding.
Yes.
Tim Hoffman.
Yes.
Dennis King.
Yes.
Rod Klein.
Yes.
Carolyn Nielsen. Yes. Greta Fisher. Yes. Doug Wells.
Yes.
9-0.
9-0, the resolution's been approved. Next is long-range planning, Raj Grinwis. Oh, I am so sorry. We have a brand-new Rules Committee chairperson, and come up and let me introduce you.
I'm really loud. Can you hear me?
Megan DeHaan is our new Rules Advisory Committee chairperson, and she will be providing the committee report tonight.
We're presenting 4 new resolutions to the board. One is the CC parking issue that everybody has during especially busy weekends or holidays. We're going to combine shade structures into one area on the rules book if passed. It would be nice instead of being, it's actually on 4 different pages if you look at it. We're going to be changing some word changes and changing the footage for the blacktops. We also need members. Our next meeting is August 12th at 9:30. Anybody's welcome to attend if you're interested. If you have any suggestions, comments, even complaints, or things that you would like to see different in the rural handbook, you can leave a message in the admin office, or you can email at ruleschairperson@sandypines.com. That's it.
Thank you, Megan, for coming tonight and sharing with us. Now on to long-range planning for Roger Grinwis.
Good evening. We met this past Wednesday, and we had a very productive meeting. The committee discussed potentially meeting with neighboring landowners, including inquiring about Sandy Pines activities and the impact to residential living next door to Sandy Pines. Just for instance, when we do the fireworks or we do the Memorial Day with a 21-gun salute, the neighbor across the street, his cows go bananas with all those booms up in the air. We just want to make sure that we're not causing any great deal, and we just to be a good neighbor. I was told that the milk that day is sour, but I don't know. Further discussion continued around a recommendation for scattering picnic tables near the rope course to accommodate members after purchasing from the nearby food trucks. Committee felt that the food trucks were very successful and would recommend that next year a determination be made to increase the number of trucks and perhaps use the space near the flea market covered picnic area where they could set, the trucks could park there and the people could sit under the shade or by picnic tables over there. It's a toss one or the other. The committee is planning to invite Ben, our Director of Maintenance, to our August committee meeting to discuss the long-term impact of our water availability, the impacts of underground sprinkling to our existing wells, well usage, and then long-term plans to meet the water demands of the park. Discussion also included a potential long-term needing possibly a commercial deep well with a water tank, a water tower. The committee suggested perhaps several sites with underground sprinkling could be metered only to determine the volume of water usage and in effect to evaluate the park-wide needs moving forward. In fact, one of our members just sitting there kind of did a little work on his computer, and he figured that just his site alone, he used 43,000 gallons of water. And according to Gene, last year we used 500 million gallons of water here. And if you will notice going around the park, you'll notice quite a few farmers have these big irrigation lines out, these big sprinklers, and they're sucking out of the water just like we are, and we got to watch it a little bit, because if we run out of water, it's not going to be nice. And we're thinking we got to look into that in the long term. And if these sites would be metered, it wouldn't be any cost or anything. We just would like to possibly know how much water you are using, and go from there. And that's about all I have.
Thank you, Raj. Building and Grounds, Carolyn Nielsen.
Good evening. Building and Grounds and Lake Committee, we were scheduled for the meeting on July 8th. I hate to report, but unfortunately only 3 members showed up. There was no business discussed, and we adjourned the meeting after 12 minutes. We need some interest in the park. People, we need committee members. Thank you.
I'll pass this right back for a golf course update as well.
As you know, last month I reported that our chairman of the golf committee moved, but we have Bill Reynolds is the interim chairperson for the golf committee. And so if you want to be on the golf committee, see Kathy in the administration building. There is an application form that they need to fill out, and Kathy can, I'm looking at you because also for the Rules Committee, that's the way you get on a committee. For the Golf Committee, you can either see Kathy in the administration building. She'll give you a form, an application form, and then that's gets to the correct committee so they know that you want to be appropriate. And for the Golf Committee, Gary Peters, I handed him about 5 of them. So if you don't want to go to see Kathy, you can see Gary to get the form, and if you want to be on the Golf Committee. But anyway, there is some positive. We had an increase in play at the golf course, 4% this year so far. So we're happy to see that. And I don't know if anybody has experienced the wine pairing events. They've had great turnouts. There were 31 people in June and 59 people in July. And that's a moneymaker for the golf. There were some problems, unfortunately, this spring with kids in the park and some of the neighborhood kids joyriding on the golf course. And that does not do the greens a whole lot of good. But Gary Peters has talked with the parents of the kids, and hopefully the problem has been resolved. Overall, the course looks great. There was much after that storm we had. I think it was a Thursday night, the 7th or something, of when my trailer actually shook. There was a great big oak tree that came down and fell and broke a nice white pine in half. The staff and the volunteers were out there and they were cleaning up, so they did a great job, and it really didn't interrupt any of our golf play. So we were out there playing, watching them all pick up all the debris. So the 2 new ladies' tee boxes have been built, and they should be ready for play next spring. So girls will be able to hit off a nice new tee box. And also, I don't know if you're familiar with the tee markers. 9 of the 18 tee box markers, the tee box signs, they have been sold for the advertisements, so they pay for the getting back revenue for the markers, and they're committed to 4 more. So I want to just thank Gary Peters for such a good just getting out there and getting some people to support with their advertisement our tee boxes. Our next golf meeting is Thursday, August 3rd, and that will be chaired by Bill Reynolds. So if you need to voice and be on the golf committee, see Gary Peters or Kathy for an application. Thank you.
Next, I would invite Bob Powers, who is the chairperson for the Technology Advisory Committee. Bob, you need a microphone?
No, I got
Okay.
big voice. Can you hear me all right?
No.
All right, sorry about that. I'm on the Tech Committee. The Tech Committee is working on 3 different projects right now. One project we're looking at is support for internet and cable services to all of the members. So if you're having trouble with your TV or your cable, you can talk to Josh at Member Services and his team there. They're doing a fantastic job. But if Josh can't help you out, we'll have some volunteers that can come out to your unit, help you reset your modem, and get you back up and running. The second item we're working at is internet access to all of the CCs. Say, why would we need internet access to the CCs? Well, we're going to do 3 different things. We're going to hook up NOAA radios there, so for weather emergencies, tornado warnings, those types of things, you'll be able to hear the NOAA radio right at the CC. You have a monitor there that can show current events that are going on at the park, warnings, missing children, those types of things. And third, monitoring of the temperature in the wintertime, especially so the pipes don't freeze. So if the temperature drops below a certain level, it'll alert Ben in our maintenance department, and he can make sure that the heat gets back on so we don't freeze any pipes. And the last item that we're looking at is security cameras for the park. We have a proposal in for that. Many of our cameras are either not functional or grainy images, and it's a real safety and security issue to make sure that we get new cameras, get them updated, and so we're working on that proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bob. Next is the Policy Advisory Committee update. Our committee met on July 12. I put out the notification at the last board meeting on June 23 that I needed members, and I thank 5 people for coming forward, and we were able to meet the following week. So thank you to those that did volunteer. First, we discussed our role as a committee. We shared 4 policy drafts that were distributed each for review by the committee members. And at our next meeting, we plan to visit a variety of templates that will be shared, allowing a more consistent means of developing policies. There's been a 3-option policy review and approval process that I have submitted to this board. I reviewed it with them at the Monday planning meeting. We have, I'll just take a couple of minutes to describe that review and approval process. The Policy Advisory Committee will develop policies or recommend amending a current policy. And that Policy Advisory Committee may include input or feedback from the staff where there's an existing process that is in place, but there's no policy to support that process. Or we could ask the staff for input and feedback around a current procedure or a current policy that we're working on. We also know that the Policy Advisory Committee may include input and feedback from an outside resource. For example, it could be our Schwab investment advisors. When we write an investment policy, we do want their input, that we've connected in the policy all the key points and the requirements of that investment policy and push it back to another advisory committee called Finance. So what we want to do is push these policies through to other advisory committees, outside resources to gain input and feedback. Ultimately, it will come to the board for feedback as well, and it could push it right back to the policy committee. We have 3 options that we're going to, that will accompany a policy when we hand it over. It will be connected to either a new policy that's being developed or a policy that currently exists that we are recommending be amended. We would ask that whomever we provide this policy to provide feedback on these 3 options. Option 1 is that the draft copy of this policy seems fine with no further comments. Option 2 would be, in general, the draft copy of this policy seems fine with a few minor exceptions as noted on the draft copy or comments below. And option 3 is the draft policy is unacceptable, it needs significant changes to be effective, and we would ask that they provide their comments and reasons why they feel it's unacceptable, and then forward it back to the policy committee so we can begin either passing it along to the board for approval or begin working and tweaking the policy. So at this time, I make a motion to the board to approve the policy review and approval process that I distributed on Monday. I look for a second. Carolyn Nielsen, second. Is there any discussion anyone would like to have about the policy review and approval process?
I would just like to thank you, Marty, for taking this initiative on this policy because it's important. I mean, as ridiculous as it sounds, you need a policy on a policy. This is very clear in the way that the powers of the board. It's clear on the process that will be used. I think it'll offer some transparency to the membership, transparency to this board, to staff, and the expectations that staff would have, and making sure that all the pieces are in place. I look forward to enhancing this going forward at some point in time to include the template and the standardized template so all policies conform to that, so that when members are reading the policies that it has the same look and feel throughout. But I think this is a great start, and I'll be supporting this.
Any other feedback before the vote? Kimberly?
Tim Hoffman.
Yes.
Dennis King.
Yes.
Rob Klein.
Yes.
Carolyn Nielsen. Yes. Greta Fisher. Yes. Doug Wilk.
Yes.
Marty Crate,
Yes.
Raj Raghawa,
Yes.
and Mike Hardy.
Yes.
9-0, so the policy review and approval process has been approved. Next, we are on to the Safety and Security Advisory Committee report. Dennis King.
Good evening. I'm Dennis King, and I'm chair of the Safety and Security Committee. We met last Friday, and on our agenda, we again discussed about the playground and the equipment, and a recommendation was then forwarded to the Board of Directors to initiate a standard to be followed, either that of the state of Michigan or develop a Sandy Pines Wilderness Trails guidelines for playground equipment. It was also recommended that in the areas needing at least 12 inches of fill to also be considered as well. We also then held a discussion on drones in the park. Apparently some of the members have experienced some drones flying around their trailers that had lasers on them and shining lasers through the windows of the members. And so a recommendation was made to have Rules Committee look into to establish guidelines for use in the park. We then discussed about how some members are aware to watch when they watch family members driving down in their golf carts, how they have young children sitting in the back of a 4-seater or a 6-seater, and it's obvious they have no way to restrain them. And that you know as well as I do, sometimes carts have a habit of jackrabbiting and what do they call it, slowing down really quick. And that the kids can fall right off. And at one time there was talk about seat belts, but it was mostly left up to the parents. Out of that discussion, it was mentioned that a box, did you know box, to maybe be established in the footprints or the weekend flyer to put in some kind of a quote that would establish or highlight something that already is in the park rules, like example, did you know it's only 10 miles an hour on your cart, stuff like that. And one of the last things that we discussed, it was concerning the development of a subcommittee or oversight committee to review any actions taken by a ranger that involves a serious incident. It was recommended that 3 members be on this panel, consisting of 2 Safety and Security Committee members and 1 member from the members at large. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dennis. Next is Mr. Randalls from the Condo Association. Did I pronounce your name correctly? Good.
That's great. Good evening. Just an update on the Condo Association, which houses the only year-round residents of Sandy Pines. And we have a great time in the condos year-round. Just a bit of a history on it. The first units were built in 2005. If you've not been over there, all are duplexes. So that was 5 buildings were built the first year, which housed 10 residents or 10 units, and then over the next 2 years, another 5. And so then we were up to having 20 units, and then the building boom busted, as you may know, and the condo development slowed way down until just the last couple years, and we picked up last year. 3 new buildings were completed with 6 new residents, and early this year another one was completed in February, 2 more, so we are now up to 42 42 units completed. 2, all of those are occupied, but 2, and they belong to the owner, the builder. 1 is the Motto, and 1 is a spec unit. Spec unit is one that is finished through 2x4 walls left, so the person who is purchasing it may have input on what kind of finishes they want to have. We also have 1 more building under construction, so we will be at 44 by the end of this year, which is great improvement. We are only cited for 54, so 5 buildings to go. Last year, we completed all buildings in phase 1. We completed the bridge for the golf cart path, so you can go from phase 1 to 2 without breaking the law and going out on the road. And we have celebrated that last year and this year with our annual Bridge Walk. It's not quite as long as the Mackinac Bridge Walk, but a lot more fun because we start at the entrance to the park at the condos by the ranger station and meander through the condo development with some of the residents putting out on their sites snacks. And so it sometimes takes us quite a while, but you have to have energy to walk all the way through. So we do the walk, and then we collect a toll at the bridge and finish the walk through phase 2, end up with a picnic potluck at one of the residents behind, and we have a drawing to see who got the toll money. So it has been fun. We have built a strong community over there, somewhat needed in the winter when we get a bit lonely, when most of you are gone, but we find plenty of things to do. We have had an annual Christmas party every year for the last 3 years. We had almost, we had 30-some people, I think 30 people attend last year. Not all of our residents go south. I think only about a third go permanently south. We have potlucks monthly. Women get together for breakfast once a month. We have other events, so we keep things going and enjoy the place year-round. I particularly like, I think of the seasons I like, and I think of fall, last year when the weather was so wonderful, and people over here were sort of bemoaning that they had to pack up and leave on the 15th, and we didn't. And so we sort of had some of the facilities to ourselves to wander and enjoy, and the beautiful weather, and golf continued for those. You had to look under leaves sometimes to find your ball. Even in the fairway, you could lose it. But so it's been fun. It's a fun place to be. We encourage you to come over and take a look. They're really nice units. They're modern, open concept with a variety of plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Randalls, for that update. Next is the report of the park president, Gene Vancouvering.
I just want to say thanks again to Richard as well. You can tell that he's enjoying his presidency over there at the association, and he's a pretty good salesman too, I think. So thank you again, Richard. Good job. What's going on here at the park in the last month and currently, Kimberly and I have to bring a draft budget to the board, operational budget and a capital budget to the board each May. And then we kind of monitor how well that budget looks like it's going to be, and then we make some adjustments as late as we can, but we need to bring that last budget to them in August at the board meeting. So we've been working on that lately and fine-tuning it, and taking a look at both operations and capital to make sure that we're going to be try and be as close as we possibly can. It is a moving target, so it is tough to do, but overall in the last 5 years I think we've done a very good job with managing the finances here in operations and capital. Obviously, that we're looking for more capital money. I had a member approach me just before the meeting to say, can you go back and define operation and capital budgets, because a lot of people still don't understand it. And he's right. And without oversimplifying it, I want to compare it to your car. You have to buy gas for your car. You have to buy registration plates for your car. You have to buy car washes if you're me, because I don't wash it on my own. And you have to do oil changes. Those are operational things. Those are things that you have to do to keep your car up. A capital budget would be putting money aside to buy a new car. Your car ain't gonna last forever. Mine's got 201,000 miles on it, still going strong, but I'm putting money aside that when my car dies, I will be able to buy another car. That's the difference between operations and capital. And if you need more explanation, we'll be glad to spend time with you. Come to the face-to-face meeting. We will be open for, it's an open forum to go over those kind of things. But but in a simple form, that's what capital and operations are. And that's, the operations here are keep the lights on, keep the fans going. They pay for our wages, those of us that are on staff. They pay for a lot of all of the things in the park that it takes to run the park. And the capital is set aside. We want to set aside money to pay for things like the replacement of this building, the replacement of any of the other buildings that may need to come up, and as far as and equipment. So any hard asset, anything you can walk up to and touch, is a capital item. So I hope that helps you a little bit. Some other things that are going on are the FEMA project is continuing on. Again, we're very excited to have having received the $857,000 grant. That, and very much appreciate the board transferring $1.1 million from operations to capital. You can do that. You can take operations money and put it in capital, but you can't take capital and put it back in operations. So they did that last month, and so when the last brick gets laid and the first person goes into the CC to go potty, it's paid for. So we're otherwise it would have been, you know, in the way business has been done here in the past, it would have been $100 a year assessment for 10 years from 2,151 sites. That's where you get the $2 million from. So we're very excited about the fact that this is going to be a paid-for project. There's a schedule for what's going on there, and if you don't catch this while I'm saying it, and you want to know what it is, give me a call or shoot me an email, or talk to anyone in the office. We'll have these dates, but on July 31st, there will be a bid opening at noon in the admin at the library, so you're welcome to come to that. The award for the bid will be on August 8th. August 8th. That will be at the Salem Township Hall. Then the demo of the two CCs will begin on September 18 to 24, in that range, but they'll be down by the end of the month, and construction will start close to the 26th of September. The next date that is a major date to look forward to is the occupancy date, which needs to be April 15. So by the time folks start coming back into the park, we want to be able to use those facilities. Final construction is scheduled to be completed on May 15, so they'll have a month to do a punch list and those kind of things. Some new things that are some new human resource things that we want to talk to you about was we got a new recreation administrator. Mary, as you might know, Mary Applehoff is retiring. She's going to spend more time selling real estate, and we really appreciate what she's done in the last number of years. She was here way before me, but in the last 3 years, she's been the recreation administrator, and we've been very fortunate to have her there, and we appreciate the time that she's given us for that. Her replacement has been hired. Her name is Nikki Hogewind. Nikki is, I think it's 451 is her site number. Her and her family here are on Sandy Pines, have been here for about 5 years, and we're very excited about having her. She's working with Mary right now to get used to the program and to get her hands dirty with it, so to speak, and then next year she'll be taking it over. Actually, she'll be starting to make some plans already by January of this year. She'll be putting together some plans for next year. We're currently seeking applications for a position of the park inspector. We'll be taking applications until the end of this month. Applications are available online or at the office, and if you're interested or know anyone that is, have them turn it into to Kathy Brott in the admin office. We want to thank Ralph Smith for stepping in as an interim inspector, so please refer any permit requests or whatever to him that you may have, or any questions you have with respect to permitting. Got a report from Nikki on the fishing with Gary and Roger. Did anybody see that going on yesterday at the dam? It was awesome. This is what she writes. The kids' fishing event took place Thursday, July 20, from 3 to 5 at the dam. It was a huge success, and we want to thank Gary and Roger for leading the program. That's Gary Walker and Roger Corser. They had dozens of fishing poles and bait on hand so all the kids could take part with a free event. We had 80 kids register on site and participate. We had 3 professional fishermen sponsored by Midway Chevrolet and DNR Sports. They came with their fishing boats on display and offered great tips to the kids as they were fishing. It truly was a special event and the kids had so much fun. The sponsors brought many prizes, including quality fishing poles and t-shirts, hats, bait, and every child received an ice cream gift card. Mary was a little unhappy about that because she thought they should have been Happy Shack gift cards, but Jim got in there first, I guess. Thank you to all who helped bait the hooks, cast the lines, and take off the fish and support this fence. That was a great thing. Tomorrow, yeah, it's good deal. The next generation, right? Tomorrow we have a face-to-face here at the in the pavilion from 9 until 11. So come and make your suggestions, comments, and ask questions. We'll have board members on hand as well as some staff will be there, and we will have some coffee and cookies, and we're going to give away some ice cream too. If there are any board members present, board candidates present at that face-to-face, we're going to allow them time to identify themselves, and if you would like, you can approach them after the forum to ask them questions on your own. So they will I'm sure they'll make themselves available. Another member, this is at the end because I didn't plan on saying this, but another member approached me before the beginning of the meeting to say we needed to do a better job at clarifying the additional $200 for the capital reserve fund and the expected costs for the 10-year. Again, I want to go back to the car example, right? It's simple. Let's say we want to buy a new car for $9,000 in 10 years. We've got half the money. We got $4,400. The added $200 that we're asking for will pay for the other half of the car. We've got some. Now another thing that made mention is we got a lot of money in our operational reserves. Yes, there's a nice amount in there. There's about $3 million in there. What the board did 3 years ago was to say we want to have 180 days of operation money set aside. That's like having a savings account in case you lose your job. So what they did, what that amounts to is $3 million. We made that last year plus $1.1 million, and that's the $1.1 million that the board just passed over to the capital for the purchase or the funding for the CCs in phase 3, our portion of it. So what we have right now is we got a little safety deposit box with that money in it, and can we borrow from it? That's up to the board. But right now the board has met its challenge to set aside that 180 days of operations cash. We're trying to do the same. We are doing the same thing with the golf course. If you notice, in the last 3 years, we paid back $143,000 to the park toward the loans that the park gave to the golf course. About $50,000 a year, and with the exception of 1 year was 43 something for some equipment, an equipment loan. This year, again, looking at the finance, the cash reserves at this time of the year, Gary's ahead of last year, about $20,000. So I would expect if we can continue that we'll have another $50,000 to $70,000 we can pay back. So it's not that those extra funds can't be used, but you use them very carefully. and you use them for good purpose. So we are looking forward to the passage of the capital reserve, and I know it's going to be come up later tonight, but my greeting to most people, and when I leave most people, is saying, vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Next on the agenda is old business, and we have noted revised security emergency operations policy section of the overall emergency operating plan. As you know, last fall we had asked Gene to recognize a need for something different in our, what we call our ranger department. He submitted that plan to us, and last month this board voted to adopt and implement that policy. We also had discussion that in a resolution form that was passed, that the use of force would exclude firearms. And we had asked Gene, which he was prepared to do, to rewrite that policy to exclude the word firearms. We've now received the new updated policy that excludes firearms throughout that plan. And we also will be evaluating the associated budget that supports the plan and the restructure of the Ranger Department. In addition to that, we have asked that the policy be posted on our website so all the members can actually see the policy. We're trying to figure out where on that website to put policies, and if we begin to place policies, which ones do we want up there, which ones don't we want up there, which ones are an easy read for members, and where and how and what do we do about those policies. So we are still in the throes of making those decisions, but I would like to thank Gene for providing an updated policy that excludes firearms. We all have a copy that says the pistol policy portion has been withheld, and there's still questions around the EMDD item, which some people labeled as a taser. So what we did is we removed the taser words from the policy as well. We left the electromuscular disruption device, better known as an EMDD policy, and we had asked Gene to provide a little bit more information about an EMDD to clarify for the membership as well as for the board what that really is, how it works, and why that is not a firearm. So with that, I asked Gene to review that.
Sure. This isn't a legal opinion, but this is a summary of what the research that we did on this has found, and then subsequently asking our legal counsel, our understanding from our legal counsel why he wrote it the way he did, which makes fully sense. If as I go through this, you'll understand. Taser is a word that is commonly used by the public and law enforcement to refer to a certain kind of EMDD. It also happens to be the former name of one of the larger EMDD manufacturers, i.e. Taser, and there's a website that I can send you to if you'd like to go see it. Taser is the name of the product that they manufacture. If some of you need to blow your nose, do you grab a Kleenex or do you grab a tissue? Because a lot of us grab Kleenexes because that's what they might be Spartan brand, but we still call them Kleenexes, right? Well, that's kind of the taser thing. At the last board meeting, someone in the audience mentioned that tasers are firearms under the Gun Control Act of 1968. This was brought up at the face-to-face meeting also the following day. This summary is meant to provide further explanation of the type of EMDDs and whether or not they are firearms, as the term is defined in federal and state law. The federal definition of firearms includes A, any weapon, including a starter gun, which will or is designed to or may readily be converted to expel a projectile by the action of an explosive. In other words, the shot going out, shooting these wires, you've seen it on television, I'm sure. If they expel that projectile with an explosion that is backed by a powder of some type, not black powder, but gunpowder. That's one definition. Another definition, B, is the frame or receiver of any such weapon. C, any firearm, muffler, or firearm silencer would be part of a definition of firearm. Or D, the final one, any destructive device. This definition is found in the Federal Code 18 U.S.C. 921-3. Michigan follows the federal definition of firearm as defined in MCL 750.222-E, which is which follows the federal law, and it says it is the expel a projectile of the action of an explosive that leads many to believe that an EMDD is a firearm under federal or state law. In fact, some of the early taser brands did fall under that definition. However, a modern EMDD is rarely a firearm. Generally speaking, EMDDs fall into three categories: stun guns, EMDDs that shoot probes via gas or a spring, and EMDDs that shoot probes via action of an explosive. Sure, there are other additional categories, but these are the three most common. Stun guns do not shoot anything. They have two or more prongs that administer an electric shock by contact with an individual. A stun gun requires direct contact with the individual. EMDDs of all varieties shoot probes, which are connected to wires toward the target. The probes penetrate clothing and sometimes skin and emit an electrical current. When originally invented in the early 1970s, the EMDD made by Taser used gunpowder as its propellant. That led to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms to classify it as a firearm in 1976. In the mid-1990s, Taser developed an EMDD that propelled the probes by compressed air. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms ruled that it was not a firearm because there was no action of an explosion. Many, if not the vast majority of modern EMDDs, propel the probes by means of a powerful jet of compressed gas. Importantly, this is not by explosion. These kinds of EMDDs are not firearms. It's important to note that the stun gun variety of EMDD is not legal for civilians in Michigan because they do not expel identification tags referred to as AFIDs, or anti-felon identification system, which is a tiny piece of bright colored or clear confetti that is packed into every Taser cartridge. That's the summary that I've been given, and go with that.
Thank you, Gene, for obtaining that for us. Are there any other board member comments about this topic at this time?
It's not about the topic, it's about the procedure.
Okay.
It relates back to the policy on policies. Going forward, I'd like to see any change to a policy that comes back for formal approval, just to keep the integrity of the policies straight, that the board approves those. Also with, hopefully that we can have track changes. I do see where he did make the changes to just make it clear so that the only change is the wording of the Taser and removing of the firearms stuff. And then back to your statement about the policies being posted. The handbook's clear right now that policies are to be posted on the website, so I'd just like us to entertain following the handbook and keeping all policies posted on the website.
Any other comments from the board on this topic?
I'd just like to thank Gene for doing the research and bringing this to the board, and also, you know, I'd like the direction that this board is going on trying to make these policies public. Appreciate all the comments and everything that we have heard from members, and hope the members hear that, you know, the board really is listening to those and really putting a lot of work into this and trying to make it as transparent as we possibly can.
Any other comments? On to new business. The first item under new business is a discussion of potential in-season incentives. The board on their planning meeting on Monday had a discussion around the financial pressures that members could or will be feeling as a result of the capital reserve fund if it is passed. And we are committed to reviewing fees, any potential incentives, and other means in support of member concerns around that impact of financial pressures as a result of a capital fund dollars being assessed. We don't have any specifics tonight to share, but we did want to let the membership know that we are looking at opportunities that may potentially soften those financial pressures. And I welcome any other board comments at this time around this topic.
No, I just think this is a great opportunity to have further discussion, to look at those items, and I'm hopeful that we can come to the board or come to the members next month to come up with some type of at least rough draft to give an idea to the members of what we're looking at. We understand that there's been the stigma out there that there's been nickel and diming going on out there, and we would like to try to make every effort to alleviate that.
Any other comments from the board on this topic? Next is the election information and capital reserve communication handout. This was, if everyone got a copy does everybody have a copy? Because they are also available for the absentee voters. So they have those as they vote in absentee ballot. I would like to thank Kimberly, Josh, and Jean for working with Revel Marketing, who did the survey for us in the early part of the season, gathered information about those that voted yes for the capital reserve last year and those that voted it down. And from that feedback, there were specific elements that were missing. And part of it was an understanding about what does a capital budget cover. So if you take a look at this capital reserve fund infographic that's before you, they've done a really good job of, in the picture format in the upper left, just kind of itemizing all of the buildings in the area, the acreage of the lake, the number of miles on the roads, the number of buildings and the vehicles and the equipment, our tennis courts, heated pools, and playgrounds, all that require capital funding. In the middle portion is really the Dare to Compare document that has been recently updated. We went to the websites of all of these like-kind campgrounds in and around this area of Michigan, and it's kind of small, but you'll see the colored dots represent all of those items underneath of amenities that those parks have, and then the average annual membership. Some of them have a little bit longer seasons than Sandy Pines, some have shorter seasons, but this was kind of the annualized dues that are paid at each one of those campgrounds or resorts. Along the right-hand side, we have identified one of the items that came up in that survey was really the role and responsibility of the members, the staff, and the board, and who is responsible and what do they do. And right underneath that is a very fairly easy explanation of capital operations, capital versus operations. Under there is the 2016 capital expenditures, what we've paid to date, what we've used, and what was funded in 2016, so you have some idea about where capital funds the current $200 that each member pays today, where those funds and assessments have supported those particular items. And then there's an explanation of the Proposal A and Proposal B on that document, as well as the 10-year capital estimate verbiage on the bottom left. So I would open to any other comments from the board at this time around this topic. Oh, in addition, you'll see the website on the bottom right-hand corner. You will go to that website to see the actual budget. You will also see the frequently asked questions around capital. We've taken questions from the survey that was done with members in the early part of the season. We've developed some of our own just in our conversations with many members, the commonly asked questions, and we've posted all of those responses. And we hope that throughout the next month, that as we get other questions from the face-to-face sessions, that we can continue to post questions and responses on that website as well. So that's where you will find the detail that you want about the specific categories and all the questions around that members are asking about the Capital Reserve Fund and the proposal.
As I look at this, the Capital Reserve Fund, what really amazes me is if right in the middle of the section, dare to compare your investment. You look down and we're at $1,602, our annual dues. You look down there, all the way down, the one that comes closest is what, Woods and Waters? And they have less than half of the amenities that we have, and they pay, looks like what, $48 more, or something like that. I haven't gotten my pencil and paper out. I appreciate what we have, and I hope that we can keep what we have. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board around this topic?
I'll speak on this a second. You know, I think the board definitely hears the feedback on Proposal A and Proposal B and why is it set up the way that it's set up. But we want to let you know that it's not something that we're trying to hold hostage by any means. We're trying to find a way to express the dire need that there is in the park at this moment for repairs to our buildings and our facilities. As we've talked before, the list of needs that comes in every year is significantly greater than the funds that are available. And we really feel that as a board, we have a fiduciary responsibility, first and foremost, to protect the assets of the park. And I know for me personally, that was why I supported the ballot proposal the way that it was written. I desperately want a pool in the park. My kids want a pool in the park. But I also know that we need to take care of the assets that are in this park. So just wanted to share that.
Any additional comments?
I'd like to comment too. I was on the long-range planning that come up with the 10-year proposal last year that went down. And we worked 3 years on that, and I think I mentioned that last year also. But I know Jean likes to compare it to a car. I like to look at it like my house, which my house in most cases with all of us is our biggest investment. And if I could give somebody $325 a year to take care of all the needs and things that need to be done on my house, I'd do that in a heartbeat. And I think that's really what you have to look at, because we've got a lot here. And we're all missing the indoor pool and our adult rec. But you have to look at the buildings, even the one you're sitting in now. How old is this building? How old are any of the buildings here? We've all been here for so many years. I've been here 24 years and seen a lot of changes, and they're trying to maintain the buildings and what we have in our lake. I don't know. I wish if you all had questions, any of you, please feel free to come to my lot and talk to me, because we worked hard on this, and we're not trying to take your money. Or the $200 is to maintain what we have. If you pass just that, then at least we can maintain what we have. If you want the extra, you've got to pay for that also. It takes money, and every year we delay this. That right now you've lost the adult rec. You've got the pool. Last year you were offered the whole thing. Building costs have just soared. And if you all check into how much it even costs to build a house, it's just unbelievable. So, you know, and we wanted to get another FEMA grant that would help us with that adult rec, and maybe down the road. But let's get this park back in place. Get it where we want it. And it's all going to be up to you, all of you. Thank you.
I would also add that I support the split ballot specifically because I feel that the needs of the park at the $200 per site for 10 years demonstrates a responsibility on behalf of the board that it meets the needs for all members in the park. There is a want for an indoor pool. I would support an indoor pool at this time because I feel it adds value to my site and my investment. But if we placed a separate ballot to pass a pool, in good conscience, I could not support building a pool, having additional operating expenses tied to that because there is absolutely no income generated from an indoor pool unless you rent it out. So the needs of the park at $200 per site demonstrates a fiduciary responsibility in my mind that we cover all the needs for all the buildings for every member in the park, even those who do not want an indoor pool. So that's why I support the ballot the way it is. Thank you.
My comments aren't whether to support or not support. It's more just to inform everyone that there is a process in place every year where Gene and administration bring forth a capital reserve budget, and we annually approve that. So if this is to pass, and I'm hopeful that it would pass, but if this is to pass, every year we will be approving the expenditures for that capital on an annual basis. So if there is something that comes up, we would have the ability to expend funds to to fix that. So going forward, if this passes, I'm hopeful that this board would be conservative going forward because at the end of 10 years, we don't want to go through this again. We want to build a healthy reserve fund, and to me, this is it's an insurance fund in the event that these assets, and let's face it, these assets are 40 years, many of them are as old as the park. So it's come time due to replace some of these and keep up the maintenance. So to me, this is not a spending plan. This is more of an insurance plan and fixing some of the assets right now that are in dire need of being fixed.
I just reflect back on last year. A very sweet lady that had been here a long time, and she had voted the $325 down. And she says, well, why do we have to have more money for the roads? We had an assessment for the roads. We paid for the roads. How many years ago were the roads put in? Just this year, just to repair, just put the patches on something, it was something like $35,000. That was what was quoted earlier, maybe more, just to repair what we have, to keep the roads so you don't get a flat tire when you go over one of the chuckles. So it isn't that, we had an assessment for the roads so many years ago to pave them. We have to keep those roads in good shape.
Any other comments from the board around this topic? Okay, just to remind everyone about the face-to-face meeting scheduled for tomorrow right here in the pavilion from 9 to 11. Annual meeting to be held on August 19 at the chapel beginning at 10 o'clock. And I would open the floor right now for any additional thoughts or comments from the board. I thought you were going to talk. Nope. No additional comments or thoughts from the board at this time? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? Our next board meeting is August 18, 2017. Thank you very much.